Hello, Wake Up New Zealand, Sakey speaking. Auckland Council is in debt for $12.4 billion. Add interest on that, add inflation and depreciation. They are in serious trouble. So they're looking at selling off the ports of Auckland. That is public property. It's owned by the people in New Zealand. It's not owned by the government, and they're looking to sell that off. They have a buyer in the wings, DP World, which is a Dubai company, and this is what's happening right now. And Wayne Brown inherited this from Phil Govt. Not only did he inherit this from Phil Govt, but he also inherited the C40 cities, because Phil Govt some time back actually joined Auckland up to membership of the C40 Network, the Global Network. And before he left his role as mayor, he made sure that he renewed his membership so it would continue on and Wayne Brown would inherit it. And this is what's happened. So New Zealanders are facing significant increases in the basic cost of living, increased rents, mortgages, loans, fuel, etc., etc. On top of that, inflation, interest rates in bank loans, etc., rents going up, and it goes on and on. Now the government want to add GST to rates and water rates. So if that isn't enough, that's what's happening now. So what about the C40 network that Phil Govt actually signed Auckland up to? Well, it's very detrimental because it's about migration that's implemented through C40 cities, mayors in cities worldwide. I believe there's about 100 cities involved, but Auckland City is part of that network, plant-based city. So this is detrimental, really, to all New Zealanders. C40 Global Network is a collaboration between C40 mayors and the Mayors Migration Council. The Global Mayors Migration Council advises local mayors on policies on climate and migration that focuses on a climate crisis, which is now a global boiling, by the way. So global mayors of C40 cities are being called the front line to climate change, migration, environmental migration, and climate refugees, climate migrants. So what we're looking at here is it's documented that C40 cities' goal is to achieve a COVID-19 pandemic green recovery, the integration inclusion of migrants and displaced environmental migrants to be implemented by C40 mayors worldwide. So to include urban policies inclusive of non-discrimination of migrants. Global mayors to accelerate the global response to climate migration. And also the Global Mayors Taskforce on Climate Migration was launched in June 2021, bringing together the mayors worldwide, where they all are committed to accelerating local, national, regional response to climate mitigation in cities, namely, as they put it, valuable lessons for a future of greater mobility, open borders, no borders. Open borders, no borders, and illegal migration. The global agenda of COP26, which Phil Govt went to, action on climate migration by local, national, and regional, international key actors. So this is huge risk to New Zealand's security, There's open borders, no borders, the risk of false passports, child trafficking, slave labour, terrorism, drug cartels, weaponry, etc., etc., civil unrest, massive risks to individuals, communities in New Zealand, and also a threat to public health. The services that are required that we are now struggling with ourselves, like hospitals, schools, etc., will be many more will be needed, and we will need the staff for those, and we cannot get the staff from those. So it puts us in really in a bad situation. Other services would be the police. Since 2019, there has been a decrease in applications for the police force by 48.5%. Joining the police force, it does not look a pretty picture these days. So they are suffering as well. So Auckland Council and central government, not telling you about the Global Mayors Migration Taskforce, the economic, social and political problems that will be included, the adverse effects on public health and education services, civil unrest, and much stricter legislation. And it's going to cost you a lot more. And you'll be waiting much, much longer for services, because it says here that migrants must be looked after. They don't say we must be looked after. They say migrants must be looked after. They must be helped. Their assets must be looked after, etc. So governments worldwide have committed themselves to doing everything possible to facilitate the integration of migrants and refugees and those people that are displaced. C40 mayors inspire a coalition of city and national government, multilateral organisations, financial institutions for urbanised dimension of climate and human mobility, no borders. The adoption of this and commitment included put people at the centre of climate action, that's migrants, put them at the centre, leverage reserves from COVID-19, that means those reserves that weren't used from COVID-19 must be used on migrants. Promote inclusive climate, equitable climate actions, recognise climate crisis impacts, the vulnerability of the marginalised people, migrants and displaced people. Help migrants adapt in a way that preserves their assets, their rights, their dignity, ensure migrants' fundamental rights of access to services regardless of migration status, whether they are legal or illegal, whether they have convictions and don't have convictions. Take them on face value. To promote good quality jobs for migrants, and here we had Jacinda Ardern in 2018 giving a speech at the Frederick Ebert Institution in Belgium alongside Angela Merkel. She said, within 20 years, we're going to have 45% unemployment in New Zealand. Now, I got that information from the Beehive. And here we say we're promising these migrants these high-quality jobs. So recognise migrants' contribution to greening local communities and the delivery of climate action. Partner with migrants, displaced people, and amplify their voices when it comes to policies making nationally and globally. C40 to meet and exceed these goals that are already set out in the UN Global Compact of Migration and the New York Declaration for Refugees of 2016, and UN Global Compact of Migration, that's the one that Peter signed in December 2018. So also other UN global agendas. So they brought that in as well, and the Paris Agreement to be compliant to all of that commitments. And New Zealand is party to 1900 UN agreements. So that will apply to all those. The Mayors Migration Council advises city mayors to shape national, international policies on migration for migrants and displaced people, migrants of climate change crisis. Wayne Brown, he got his inheritance, didn't he? Not good a look for him. Pretty bad for him. They really, really shoved his face in the mud, didn't they? 12.4 billion plus debt from Govt and C40's migration. 13% interest on rates, increase in rates, a 9.4 increase on water bill and less services. That's what Auckland Council say, and it's going to worsen next year. So the selling of assets that belong to the people of New Zealand. We already have waiting lists in hospitals. Doctors, what are we going to do? We're going to have virtual doctors back again, because that's one of those things that are on the global agenda too. The lack of rentals, the high cost of rentals, high cost of mortgages, inflation, GST coming. It's all happening. The inability to measure carbon dioxide and other chemicals because of the Keeling curve, as explained in my last video. And here we have all this around climate bullshit, carbon dioxide, where they can't even measure it because it's been wiped out by lava flowing down a damn volcano in Hawaii, which they rely on an observatory at the top of that volcano to measure all CO2 and emissions worldwide. They can't do it anymore. Come on, wake up, New Zealand. So the political cronies from cesspit of Wellington on their general election campaigning. Who's going to bring this up? Is anyone going to bring this up? Anyone going to say anything about this? Peters knows about this. He knows about the Mayor's Migration Declaration that was signed at the same time as the UN Global Compact in Marrakech and Morocco. Of course he knows about it. He knows about mass migration. So what he would say is it's non-binding. But what he won't tell you is it can be used as a reference for judicial law in the courts. And also, when a country like New Zealand agrees to a UN agenda, and they say it's non-binding because most of them are non-binding, there it sits in soft law. It's a great advantage because they can get to it and you don't even know that they've adopted it into domestic policy, making it legal. But as I say, it can be used by the judicial, whether it's non-binding or binding, whatever. So when are we really going to say enough is enough? This surely is enough. We will end up as a third world country. This is about diluting a sovereign nation, deliberately so. And of those political cronies in the cesspit of Wellington know that. This will hugely impact not only in the city, urban, rural areas, right across the board. Dinka crime going up, the civil unrest. the restrictions, because you're not allowed to say this or that about anyone who has come into the country, because they could twist it and make out you have discriminated against them. So the people of New Zealand are the ones who are targeted at the expense of a global agenda that's been perpetrated, implemented by local and central government. And they all know it. Wake up, New Zealand.